On January 8th, 2026, 13 days ago, the Heritage Foundation, which is responsible for Project 2025, and, by the way, hand-selecting J.D. Vance as the candidate for vice president, aligning him to be the next president. Remember, he's only a heartbeat away from that office. They published this. It is, quote unquote, a special report, and it is called Saving America by Saving the Family, a foundation for the next 250 years. You're going to listen to this video, and then you are going to go and find this document at the bottom there where it says download report. It is over 160 pages. I'm going to give you a few of the highlights, but it would be in your best interest to spend some time with that document. I'm going to make a separate video on the idea of July 4th, 2026, because a lot of the Heritage Foundation documents reference it, as well as a lot of the executive orders from Donald Trump. And so I feel bad about that date. Something is uncomfortable about that date. But what they are saying is on July 4th of this year, we will remember our founding fathers. And as a result, we must remember that they were, in fact, real fathers. They introduced the idea that the universal experience proves that children are best raised in homes with married mothers and fathers. Then they define the family as a foundation of civilization and marriage. The committed union of one man and one woman is its cornerstone. It is the seedbed of self-government. It then goes on to talk about how even communist dictators of the 20th century, such as Stalin and Mao, could not get rid of this idea of a need for family. So they're justifying it by saying that it's okay because dictators thought it was cool too. I don't know. That part's weird. After that brief introduction, they then start talking about policy and how the government can respond to what they are explaining as a marriage crisis and a birth rate crisis in one of two ways. The first is to just accept how things are progressing and what the trajectory is. And then they recommend a second option, which in their words is to presume that if trends, policies, and influences lead to the decline of marriage and family, then trends, policy, and influences can lead to its restoration. And then they say in black and white, and then highlighted in yellow by me, no other choice than to pursue this option. They have no other choice. They suggest that the president, and by the way, Donald Trump is named in this document. You can look for that yourself. It says the president, as in Donald Trump, should issue a series of executive orders requiring every grant, contract, policy, regulation, research project, and enforcement action involving the federal government to do the following: explicitly measure how it helps or harms marriage and family, block actions that discriminate against family formation, and give preference to actions that support American families. And then they start talking about why it is that less and less people are getting married and less people are having children. They claim that by having a man and a woman married together, it is their best route to financial success and a happy life. They also go so far as to blame welfare programs, saying that, again, it enforces the idea of single parenthood and allows single parents to exist, whereas it would be more successful if they had married. So by getting rid of welfare, people will be more likely to get married, is their idea. And then they also talk about how the money for welfare programs comes from middle class families. And so they hope to get rid of welfare, encourage the poorest of the poor to marry one another for financial freedom, and then suggest that this will also free up the middle class